Hey everybody, welcome back. This is One More Thing. I am Jesse Dollemore. I'm just going to jump right into this because there's a lot here. I'm going to be talking about the very first day of the impeachment trial in the United States Senate and Republican efforts, which seem to this point to be very successful at preventing witnesses, preventing evidence from coming forth, and not allowing the Democrats to do their job at presenting their case in the impeachment of Donald Trump for the hopeful removal of Donald Trump from office, for both obstruction of Congress and also abuse of power. Jerry Nadler said it best on the first day that any senator who votes to disallow witnesses, who votes to disallow evidence, is not doing their duty, is not in compliance with their oath, both to support and defend the Constitution, but also their vote of impartiality as a judge and juror in this case.
The only reason to oppose bringing a witness is to cover up because you're afraid of what the witness will say. The question before the Senate is, do the Republican senators want to be complicit in the cover-up of the president? Any senator who votes to deny a witness, who votes to deny evidence, is voting to cover up the president's crimes and subversion of the Constitution.
He's absolutely right. They are not in compliance with their oaths, like I said earlier, either to the Constitution or to their oath that they swore and signed to impartiality, to judge this case on its merit fairly, with justice in mind. And that goes both to Donald Trump and also to the Democrat, the case that they're making, not to prejudge. There are 11 amendments that were put forward for the Republicans to vote on, relative to witnesses, to evidence to be brought forth in this trial. The first was to subpoena White House documents. The second, I'll go through these quickly, subpoena for State Department records. Number 3, subpoena for Office of Management and Budget records. The Office of Management and Budget, you'll remember, is the department that Mick Mulvaney heads up, as well as being the White House Chief of Staff. That would be the 4th amendment, to subpoena Mick Mulvaney. Subpoena for Defense Department documents. Subpoenas for Robert Blair, who's a senior White House aide. An amendment to prevent selective admission of evidence. Subpoena for John Bolton, the former National Security Director of the United States, to Donald Trump. Vote on motions to subpoena witnesses and documents outright was voted against. Vote to allow additional time to respond to motions. Require Chief Justice Roberts to rule on subpoenas. Motions. So all of these failed on a vote 53 to 47, except for one. One of them, Susan Collins did vote for. That would be number 10, a vote to allow additional time to respond to motions. But every other one, Mitt Romney, the supposed moderate or Trump opponent in the Senate, voted against every one of these amendments, voted to table every one of these amendments. Susan Collins voted, all of them except for one. Right now, the Senate sits at 53-47. And I want to talk about this because there are 4 senators that are in very severe risk of losing their seats. 4 Republicans. That would be Susan Collins of Maine, Cory Gardner of Colorado, Martha McSally of Arizona, and Thom Tillis of North Carolina. These 4 individuals all voted against allowing witnesses and evidence into the trial of Donald Trump. And every one of these 4 is right now in a toss-up in their re-election effort in 2020. If you're in one of these states, if you're in Maine, if you're in Colorado, if you're in Arizona, if you're in North Carolina, you need to do everything you can to see that these people are ousted this election. This is a miscarriage of justice. It is an affront to the Constitution, and it goes against the oath they swore to be impartial in this. Because how can a trial be fair with no witnesses? How can a trial be fair with no evidence? Hakeem Jeffries is one of the House managers of the case for the trial. And he presented the number of witnesses in all other impeachment trials that have run through the Senate. Every impeachment trial runs through the Senate, but the number of witnesses and the average of all of them. Watch this.
This distinguished body has conducted 15 impeachment trials. All have included witnesses. Sometimes those trials included just a handful of witnesses, as indicated on the screen. At other times, they included dozens. In one case, there were over 100 different witnesses. As the slide shows, the average number of witnesses to appear at a Senate impeachment trial is 33. And in at least 3 of those instances, including the impeachment of Bill Clinton, witnesses appeared before the Senate who had not previously appeared before the House. That's because the Senate, this great institution, has always taken its responsibility to administer a fair trial seriously.
Now, of all of those, that's a powerful graphic that he put up. In fact, let's put it back up while I talk about this. Of all of these that you're seeing right now, the 2 that you should really focus on, all the others are federal judges that have been removed for one reason or another, usually taking bribes. The 2 that you should really pay attention to are the presidents. President Andrew Johnson was impeached, and during the trial there were 40 witnesses called. Most recently, President Bill Clinton had 3 witnesses. However, that is a different case because of the fact that Ken Starr had published a 453-page summary of his thousands of hours of interviews, his hundreds of witnesses, his tens of thousands, maybe millions of pages of documents that were under the course of his investigation of Bill Clinton. So there was an independent counsel that did all of that legwork and then submitted a summary report. So there was no need for as many witnesses, but there were still witnesses. If we're running on precedent, which our government loves to talk about doing, our legal system loves to talk about doing, the United States Senate loves to talk about tradition. If we're doing that, then there needs to be witnesses in this trial. Otherwise, it is a sham. It is a farce. The average number of witnesses, again, I'll put the graphic up, 33. 33 average number of witnesses in an impeachment trial. And the reason they don't want witnesses, the reason they don't want evidence like this to come forward is because of the fact that it is going to be damning for Donald Trump. They will have no other choice but to find him guilty because he is guilty. If he was innocent, why would he not want these individuals, John Bolton, Mick Mulvaney, people who are in the thick of this? Why would he want them to testify? Why would he not want them to clear his name? To give him an alibi, so to speak? He's not doing that. In fact, he's in Davos, Switzerland yesterday, and he makes this comment, admitting, not just admitting, but bragging that he has all of the materials, all of the evidence, and the Democrats who are running his Senate impeachment trial, they don't have any of it.
When we released that conversation, all hell broke out. with the Democrats because they say, wait a minute, this is much different than Shifty Schiff told us. So we're doing very well. I got to watch enough. I thought our team did a very good job. But honestly, we have all the material. They don't have the material.
How can Republicans look at themselves in the mirror being obsequious to this pumpkinhead of a president? So stupid that he just admits, yeah, we've got all the materials. They don't have any of that. That's the crux of the issue here. And yet Susan Collins and Cory Gardner, Martha McSally, and Thom Tillis vote against evidence. We have a real shot at flipping this Senate. Those are the four that we need. That's all we need is those four that are absolute coin flips right now. There are others, though. There are others. Steve Daines in Montana. It's leaning red, but it's not for sure. Cindy Hyde-Smith in Mississippi. Leaning red. Could go the other way, though. Especially if we use this Senate trial and show them as the charlatans that they are. Joni Ernst in Iowa. Kelly Loeffler in Georgia. David Perdue in Georgia. John Cornyn in Texas. In Texas, the Republican is not even safe. We have a real opportunity in 2020 to flip this Senate. To oust Donald Trump from office and have, for once in a long time, a fully Democratic House, Senate, and presidency to do some real work. To enact some real progress for our country. We can legislate some sensible gun legislation, some real healthcare reforms, some actual trade policy that works for everybody. Better our infrastructure. There are so many environmental regulations that we need to push forward that are being blocked by Donald Trump's party, the party of Trump. Now, if you're on the other side of this and you're watching Fox News to get your information, we're going to leave this with something a little bit funny. This is how Fox News was covering the impeachment trial of Donald Trump. As the speeches are being made, the cases are being made by both the White House team and by the House managers, they're scrolling Donald Trump's quote-unquote accomplishments as some kind of a prize. Completely irrelevant, even if he was an accomplished president and was doing some good in the country. It would not matter. It does not negate his bad behavior. But you wouldn't know that if you watch Fox News. And then I'll finish with this. The other argument that the White House team is making is that the Democrats aren't ready. They're not ready. Their case is not ready. They don't have their documents in line. They don't have their evidence in line. And Adam Schiff, listen, I have had my criticisms for Adam Schiff in the past, but he is nothing short of a rock star in this proceeding. Listen to him shove their argument right down their throat.
Mr. Philbin says that the House is not ready to present its case. Of course, that's not something you heard from any of the managers. We are ready. The House calls John Bolton. The House calls John Bolton. The House calls Mick Mulvaney. Let's get this trial started, shall we? We are ready to present our case. We are ready to call our witnesses. The question is, will you let us? That is the question before us. Now, Mr. Philbin says, well, if I showed up in court and said I wasn't ready, the judge would throw me out of the court. Of course, we're not saying we're not ready. But you know what happened if Mr. Philbin went into a court and the judge said, I've made a deal with the defendant. I'm not going to let the prosecutor call any witnesses. I'm not going to let the prosecutor present any documents. You know who'd get thrown out of the court? The judge. the judge would be taken out in handcuffs. So let's step out of this body for a moment and imagine what a real trial would look like. It would begin with the government receiving documents, being able to introduce documents, being able to call witnesses. This trial should be no different.
Oh, you say we're not ready, huh? Well, we call John Bolton to the stand. We call Mick Mulvaney to the stand. Let's get this thing underway. Fantastic. Because there's nothing that can be said to that. They are ready. They are more than ready. Adam Schiff knows this case inside and out. And it is only because of Republican obstructions that they're not allowed to do it. So again, the theme of the video here, and share this with your social network, especially people who live in Susan Collins, Maine, in Cory Gardner's Colorado, in Martha McSally's Arizona, and in Thom Tillis's North Carolina. This is important. We have a real shot at not just ousting Donald Trump and putting a nail into the coffin of the Republican Party, but also some real structural change in our country. The Republican Party is going to die just through attrition, just because the old white men aren't going to be around forever, at least this crop of them. We have a real shot here. So really, please, engage with this video, like, share, comment, all of the things that YouTubers say. But more importantly, get involved in the system and have conversations with your friends and your family and your neighbors about just how important 2020 is. November 3rd is a make or break day. I always say that we always say this election is the most important in our lifetimes. But God damn it, this election is the most important one of any of our lifetimes. We have a chance of ridding ourselves of this Republican Party, this particular version of this particular terrible Republican Party. A real shot at it. But it's going to take every single one of us. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I invite your comments. I invite your questions, 714-576-4054. You can also email me at onemorething@dollemore.com. Also, before I go, if you've been on the fence about becoming a channel member, joining the channel membership thing here on YouTube, now would be a fantastic time. I've been putting out a lot of videos. Every time I talk about matters of race, matters of war, possible war with Iran, me even saying that might demonetize this video. I'm unencumbered by YouTube and their, today is the rule, tomorrow might not be the rule. I'm extricated from worry about that from channel membership. So if you have the disposable income and it's not a big deal, you don't have to budget it in, please consider for $2 a month, you can become a channel member and really help support independent media like this. It is very important in our age to do so. So I love you guys. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining me. I wanted to jump in here and do this really quick because we're on a break from the current arguments on the floor of the Senate. And I didn't want to go another day without having a video out. So I love you guys. Thank you. And I'll see you next time.